Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Joe with comiXalliance,
And I'm Chris.
and this is issue number 4 of our podcast. So, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy this podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about top 5 um, comic books that have been made into video games. I just want to go over one thing, and Chris, I kind of want you to chime in with this. Are we going to keep this limited to not necessarily a comic event or like any special story, but just video games that have been based around comic books, or is things that were video games first made back into comic books okay?
Uh, I'm down for whatever. You could do ones that are referenced from comic books, or just comic book characters put into a game.
Okay,
Anything that's comic book related.
so just anything that's made the two
Yeah.
like kind of intertwined the two.
Yep.
Okay, not that I'm worried about my list interfering with that. I just wanted to maybe explain that to the listener.
Yeah.
Okay, so to start, go ahead with your number one. We'll do the alternating list like we did last time with the top fives, because
All
I
right.
like the way
Sounds
this
good.
flows.
Cool. All right. So the first one that I'll be selecting for my pick is a game that I grew up with and loving and playing multiple times because it's one of the only few games that I had growing up, and that is Maximum Carnage. This was released back in 1994. I forget what month, but it was developed by Acclaim Studios, and I think the music was done by Green Jelly. And
Just excuse me, just the intro, I believe, because they even
yeah.
had the MIDI version of a Black Sabbath song in it.
Oh, nice.
I think it was one of the boss fights.
Oh, that's awesome.
But
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
but I don't think that was licensed. The only the theme song. So sorry, go
Oh,
on.
gotcha. Yeah, so the game was I had the game on the Sega Genesis, but it was produced on SNES and Sega Genesis. Um, so this is one of the big comic book references that I grew up reading. But I played the game first. So when I was playing the game, as you can see in the background, you could see comic book panels and layouts. It's almost like a live action comic book, like the way you would read it on a live action, or what do you call it? I don't know what you would call that, like
Kind of
a
like seeing a comic
movable.
book, like an interactive comic book almost.
Yeah, interactive comic book. It kind of reminds me of some of the digital comics where if you click on a panel, like the next comic bubble would pop out.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. I thought this story was basically just for the game, but I found out later that it was an actual comic book series that came out before the game. So I thought that was really awesome. I finally collected the comic books. I bought the whole set for I think $20. Amazing Comics had it in their store, so I picked it up. And the graphics back then were super minimal, and I really liked it because it was a side scroller beat 'em up, and loved the fact that you could play as Spider-Man and using his abilities and whatnot, fighting street thugs to as high bosses like Shriek, Dagger, or not Dagger, Shriek, Doppelganger, Carry On, Carnage, just to name a few. And also being able to have the ability to choose to play as Venom later on in the game, which was really cool. And there's these specific icons that you could pick up later on throughout the game, where you could get a certain number of icons that you pick up on the floor, or stashed secretly somewhere, and you could press I forget the buttons, but you could press a combination of buttons where it'll summon like another hero. So the heroes that were available that I could remember is Captain America, Iron Fist, Deathlock, Cloak and Dagger, and I think I'm missing one more. Oh, Firestar, which was super awesome because they help you deal a lot of damage, whether it be street thugs or some of the bosses that you fight, which was really helpful in some of these levels, because This game was actually pretty hard when I used to play it, and since it was the only game that I had available to me, I ended up trying to look for secrets or secret passages throughout the game. And I don't know how I came about it, but back then, like a lot of video games had sections in the games where you could find secret icons or secret items, and then you could use it to benefit your gameplay. And I'm pretty sure I found almost every single one in this game. It was really awesome. The stories overall was really cool. It was very violent for the time, and the overall experience that I got was being able to play a comic book story on a video game, which was unheard of for me back then. And the replayability was really good for me, just because it was really fun playing out, doing the beat 'em up type of gameplay and trying to find out all the secrets and trying to have as many lives towards the end of the game, and getting a big score at the end of the game as well. So yeah, that's my first one.
Okay, so to absolutely nobody's surprise, my number one was also Maximum Carnage. I
It's a
think
great
it
game.
hit, yes, obviously. I think the reason is it hits a lot of those nostalgia buttons that it's like I grew up listening to a lot of like punk rock and a lot of metal, a lot of grunge. And one band that I absolutely loved growing up was Green Jello, who later became Green Jelly. And I was actually into them before their album 333 came out, which is what featured the song Maximum or Carnage Rules. And so, as I've mentioned before, when I was young, my neighbor used to bring me like comic books to read, and I was like really young. I wasn't even sure what I exactly everything I had read, but this was one of the first games or the first times I was really introduced to anything beyond Spider-Man. So like, it was my first introduction to Carnage, my first introduction to Venom that I remember at least, and my first introduction to what's it called? Like Doppelganger. And I remember thinking like Doppelganger was like the stupidest thing ever back then.
Yeah,
Like just oh, this is like a stupid like wannabe Spider-Man. Like I knew nothing about it. I was
right.
young.
If you had a
So
choice to rename Doppelganger, what would you name him?
man, I have no idea. That's a tough question. Bootleg Spider-Man. I can't think of anything. But yeah. So don't get me wrong. I think Doppelganger's cool now. It just I was a kid.
Oh
Like I
yeah,
didn't. I was like
it's definitely
12.
a weird name. Yeah,
Yeah, and comic books in my whole life was like an in and out thing. Whereas like I was reading them at one point, then I wasn't, then I was, then I wasn't, and so I never knew about Doppelganger. I knew who Venom was as time went on, but this was the first time I ever like actually like read anything or saw anything outside of just like a T-shirt with Venom or somebody
mm,
like mentioning Venom or someone with the comic book of Venom at school that I never got to read or something.
yeah,
I never really knew much about him, and so this was a huge introduction to me for some of the Marvel world, regarding this. And one thing that stands out about this game to me, beyond the music, was oh, I'm sorry, the nostalgia that stands out to me was this was one of two games that when I was a kid, my family, we weren't rich, we weren't poor, but my parents weren't just like lining up to buy me video games all the time. But there was an Albertsons that used to rent video games not too far from my house. And I would always rent one of two games. It was either Final Fantasy 3, which is really Final Fantasy 6, or Maximum Carnage.
oh
And
nice.
yeah, they were both obviously for the SNES. I was not a Sega fan growing up. And so I spent a lot of my childhood trying to beat Maximum Carnage and Final Fantasy 6/3. Yeah, so I grew up playing this game and loved it. Like I had so much fun playing it, and a lot of it had to do with it being, a comic book story. Like you said, a lot of those panels, it was really cool to see that brought to life in a way that I've never seen before, especially for its time. Like this is pretty much unheard of because if you think back, like the Batman game just seemed like, just a really poor, side-scrolling action game.
Yeah,
And same with like the X-Men games. what was it? Oh God, was it the Silver Surfer game? Where it may as well have just been like a really
for
bad
the
like R type.
for the NES, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
like it was bad. There were just so many games like that that just they didn't feel like a comic book being brought to life.
yeah,
This one does. And then, as I've mentioned before, I really love like things that are like just dark and gloomy and morbid and stuff. And Carnage brought that all to life for me, in a game. And I just thought he was the coolest thing growing up. And I always wanted more to know more about Carnage and wanted, more Carnage in my life.
yeah.
I kind of got sidetracked with the Green Jello thing. So being a big fan of them, back in like the God, I can't even remember the name of the first album for some reason, but everybody knew the Three Little Pigs song. And so, I was really into them. I owned the first album, oh, Serial Killer. And so when I first heard the song, and I believe this is the opening track on the song, I was like, this is amazing. Like, what is this? And then I think I read in a magazine that it was the the theme song for a video game. I was like, well,
Yeah.
now I have to play this video game, having no idea that it was like Spider-Man, because like I said, I didn't know anything about Carnage back then.
It's
So
so
I did.
awesome.
Yeah, so like when I finally make this connection, I start realizing like, oh, this is like Spider-Man, and this is like a whole world connected this. And so because like that point in my childhood, relating to a band I loved, and like loving comic books and stuff, it has a lot of nostalgia for me, and I'll always consider this one of the best games ever made, just simply for that.
Yeah, same here. Just the fact that, like you said, the music was really good for this game, and sometimes I would find myself, since I didn't have the soundtrack or didn't know who the band was, I I basically would turn the game on and let the music play the whole
That's
time
awesome.
as I like played with my action figures and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, this video game means so much, and the story as well.
And one last thing to throw that you just mentioned, how like you weren't familiar with the band, but you were familiar with like the story. I, on the other hand, wasn't familiar with the story, but I was familiar with the band.
Yeah.
It's like we love the game for similar reasons, but I think our core reason for loving it are opposites.
Yeah, which is still
Like
great.
the music pulled me to it, but the actual comic story pulled you to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
So
actually was trying to find a really good Spider-Man game to play back then, because I used to watch the cartoons when it came out, around the same time X-Men did as well. So when I found this, I was like, man, and just the cover
yeah,
alone on
oh,
the on
I love
the
the
on
cover
the
for this
cartridges, it was great, and it was one of the only few like limited edition cartridges that
on
if you
the
could
red
find them.
cartridge.
Yeah, the full red cartridge was a really cool thing to collect.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
awesome.
Okay. So I think that finishes
That
up
covers
our
the
number
first one,
one,
right?
right? Yep.
Awesome, yeah. So the next one that I'll be going over is uh is another Marvel game as well,
I
and
swear it
that
better not be
is
the same as me.
it's going to be Ultimate Alliance.
Oh
And
God, no, I'm just kidding.
the first one,
Yeah,
the first Ultimate Alliance. When I found this game, I was like, Ultimate Alliance, what is this? Like, is this like the Avengers or something? But back then, when this game came out, like, not too many people were huge fans of the Avengers or anything yet, because the movies haven't come out yet. Um, this game came out back in 2006, so a little bit after I got out of high school. It was developed by Ravensoft and Barking Lizards, published by Activision, and was released out on the PS2, PS3. I think they did a PS4 port as well. Same thing with the Wii system, GBA. I don't even know that it came out. Xbox 360, and Xbox One. Um, so the comic book references for this one, it had its own story actually. I don't think it referenced any Marvel event per se, but the graphics and cinematics were top notch, going from your 2D side scroller to these 3D cinematics. When I saw this, I was like, oh my god, is the gameplay going to be like that? And obviously it wasn't, but it was still awesome to see the cinematics and the interactions between uh, all of my favorite Marvel superheroes, which was great. So when I first started playing, I started the game, played the story, and it was basically a top-down action RPG where you get to select a set number of characters, up to 4 max, and you later unlock a lot more characters once you reach to certain levels and whatnot. So, and each character has a certain number of abilities that you could do, as well as a special. And then you could also switch between characters as you play throughout the levels, which was unheard of for me. So in this case, you start off with Captain America, Thor, Wolverine, and Spider-Man, I believe. And just seeing their abilities on screen is really fun and really cool to see, and being able to unlock more skills and abilities later on. So the sound and music, the sound effects were okay. I wish they could be a little more dynamic when it comes to bigger abilities being done, but the music was okay as well. I still love the Maximum Carnage soundtrack a lot better than any of the Marvel games that are out. But the combat was super fun. The story was okay. It felt very much like a comic book type of story. It wasn't too serious, but it wasn't too childish either. It was exactly what you would find in a comic book event or arc. And my overall experience was really great. I enjoyed the game so much that I wanted to replay the game in either a harder level or the same level, but with different sets of teams or characters. Like my second playthrough, I played mostly X-Men characters, which was really cool. And then my third playthrough, I did Avengers. My first playthrough, I basically just chose my favorite characters that I wanted to use. So that's about it for me. How about you, Joe?
So my second one, no surprise here. It's going to be a Spider-Man game. Um, it's going to be Shattered Dimensions.
Nice.
So for anyone who hasn't played it, it was released on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Wait, was it 360? Yes, they did do it on 360.
Yeah.
It features 4 different Spider-Men. It is Amazing Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, Spider-Man Noir, and Spider-Man 2099. One thing I didn't know this actually at first was Neil Patrick Harris voices the Amazing Spider-Man in that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he did. He was the voice actor in what was it? The Spider-Man, the new animated series too.
Oh, is it spectacular?
I don't know. I've never seen that, but I
Oh,
found
okay.
out that he voiced him
I
in
think it
that,
might be
and
that one.
that's pretty awesome to think that like Neil Patrick Harris got to play Spider-Man or
Yeah.
voice Spider-Man at least. So that game, I love that you swap between 4 different Spider-Men or Spider-Mans. Um, you bounce between the different worlds or dimensions and fight different bosses. I don't want to get too into the game, partly because it's been so long since I've played it. I don't remember everything, so I don't want to come across as like I don't know what I'm talking about. But you do, jump between them. And one thing that I do love that really stood out to me, it was the first time I was introduced to Spider-Man Noir. I know he had been around, I believe, for a couple of years before that, uh, but I didn't know anything about him. It was the first time I actually like saw Spider-Man Noir. I was like, this is probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like an old noir version of my favorite character. This is really cool to see. Like, it was all black and white. And it changed the dynamic from being like full color, on some levels and futuristic in the 2099 and uh I believe the Ultimate Spider-Man was the first level you play him as is like in a jungle or something.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't remember who the boss was you fight in that, but I remember that being a pretty cool level. But it was a huge change from all like the vibrant colors, and it was just kind of dark and dreary and it was a unique take. And I mentioned Spider-Man Noir. I want to say, yeah, on our first or second issue or
Yeah,
issue
one of
number
those two.
one. Yeah, I mentioned Spider-Man Noir and how much I love Spider-Man Noir. So everybody knows that and why. But so that was my introduction to him, and I thought it was really cool. And then I've mentioned in the past how Spider-Man 2099 was something that I loved because it was one of the first things that I read going into like junior high and high school. That was Spider-Man, and not it wasn't the first thing I read, but it was like one of the first things I read Spider-Man at that point in my life. And a friend of mine had the first issue of it, and I'll never forget like reading it, like flipping through it at his house, and just thinking like, man, this is really cool. Like this is a whole new like version of Spider-Man I've never seen before.
Yeah.
I'm like really psyched on it, only to realize that it's not Peter Parker and it's a Hispanic guy named I forgot his last name, but his first name is Miguel. So I thought that was kind of cool. He's not Mexican, I don't think so. Can't relate to him that much, but
He was a secretly spider monkey, right?
yes. So I just thought that was really cool, and yeah, so that was my second favorite, just because I got to see like four variations of a character I love come together in a single game. And I remember I pre-ordered that game. I was so excited for it when I heard about it. And
Yeah.
like all other games, I shut myself off from knowing too much just 'cause I wanted to experience it.
Yeah.
And I believe the first boss fight was Mysterio, so that was kind of cool.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I think I had that a long while back. It actually took me a while to find that game, and when I did, the price was still pretty high on it for a used game.
yeah, no,
And
that
and it
game. Oh, sorry, go on.
and it held that price for a long while, so I ended up not picking it up. So I
Yeah,
still to this day haven't played it, and I completely forgot about that game. And now that you mention it, I'm like, man, I want to play that game, but I don't think they've ever ported that game or
they
remastered it
have
or
not.
anything.
I check every so often to see if it's
Yeah,
become backwards compatible with Xbox,
yeah,
and it's still not. And I'm starting to think it's never going to be, because I'll
dang.
buy it.
So
I'll buy it the day it becomes backwards compatible.
yeah,
Hell, I
you
should
still
just buy
have
it now while it's cheaper.
you still have your copy?
No, I sold it along with a bunch of other. Like when I got rid of my PS3 collection,
Yeah,
it was one of the games that went with it.
gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
sad
When
day.
yeah, all right. So that was your second one, correct?
Yes,
Yeah, all right. Shattered Dreams is definitely gonna be on my
Shattered
list,
Dimensions.
or Shattered Shattered Dimensions for sure. All right. So for my third one is kind of like another Marvel game, and that is Marvel versus Capcom 2. This came out back in 2000. Well, it was released on the arcade in the year 2000, and later on released on the other ports in between 2002 and 2009. So the developer and publisher for this game is Capcom, hence Marvel versus Capcom 2.
Who
It
knew?
was yeah, it was released on the arcade systems, Dreamcast, PS2, 3, Xbox 360, and I believe those are all the ports it came out for. And I think PS. Oh yeah, I did say PS3. I'm still waiting for them to make that available for the PS4 or PS5 eventually. So it was such a good game. But yeah, growing up with this game just opened my mind to a whole new different level of a gaming genre where you could have your favorite like Street Fighter characters and other Capcom characters battle it out with the Marvel characters. Like how insane was that? And when this game came out, like I think the game was very hard to find because it became very popular. It became a fighting game staple for Evo, and you had so many great players combining different types of characters together to fight against each other. So for the for the story, I don't think it was based off any comic book event or story specifically. It was just on its own. I still to this day don't even know exactly who the boss is. It just looks like this big green jelly guy, if you remember. I should probably look that up, but the graphics and cinematics was very, very cool. The artwork was still 2D, but the sprites looked amazing. It was very detailed, very fast paced, and the music and sound effects were just top notch. Like the voices for the characters was spot on. The effects, the sound effects for the abilities that they use, and the hits that get get executed were really crisp. The music was more of like I think it was like a jazzy type, right? Very upbeat jazz.
Yeah, it was
Um,
a very unique soundtrack.
yeah, like uh, I was looking for more of like a superhero type of soundtrack or theme to it, but the upbeat, fast-paced jazz music actually fit really well with the fighting. So I ended up liking it, and I'm sure it's very nostalgic for a lot of people growing up that played this game. The combat was, I felt, was broken back then, which was great. And if you knew how to take advantage of the fighting system, because you could get to the point where you're uh, doing all these combos and literally just juggling someone
Like
until you beat them.
those unlimited
And
combos.
yeah, exactly. Like once you get locked, like you're screwed. Like you can't even get out of it. I think they possibly fixed that later on when they released
I
the
don't
digital formats.
I don't think they did.
No.
I think those digital formats were just straight ports. I don't think they cleaned
Oh, that's even
anything up.
better.
Yeah, so that brokenness is still very much there.
Yeah.
So
I think the only stuff that came out, or some of the things that I do remember from the port to the 360 and PS3, are just achievements and like, and I forgot what you call them. They're unlocks. You like unlock like certain achievements that you do on the
yeah,
360, and trophies on the PS3. Um, but my overall experience was ridiculously fun. The replayability was awesome just because you could, you know, change a bunch of characters teaming up with each other. You got like, you can make the X-Men team, an Avengers team, I guess Thunderbolts, if that counts. You could even put like different types of villains together, which was really cool. You could have, I remember one of my fun villain teams that I put together on there was Doctor Doom, M. Bison, and shoot, who was my other one?
Omega Red.
There you go. Yeah.
Are you serious? I just guessed.
Yeah, yeah. Omega Red.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
I
it was
really
great.
just threw that out there randomly.
Yeah.
I always loved playing as Omega Red in that game.
Oh yeah, he was super awesome. And then you could do the tank team as well, where it's Juggernaut, Zangief, and Hulk.
Yes, that was a
Yeah.
ridiculous combo.
Yeah, they even had the Sentinel in there.
Yeah,
It
Sentinels were
really,
ridiculous.
yeah, their roster for this game is huge, and man, I I don't know. I'm not even sure if I have my copy still, but if I don't, I'm gonna have to rebuy it.
Good luck. It's pretty expensive.
Yeah, I'm willing to pay whatever.
Yeah, for those memories.
Yeah, exactly. Or
So
we could play one of them one day, and I'll show
yeah,
you up.
so before we move on to my next one, I just want to
Yeah.
go over what I love about Marvel versus Capcom.
Uh-huh.
Not to take away because this isn't one of my favorites. I have so much good to say about this game.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely terrible at it. Uh, Someone who's blind with no hands could probably beat me at it. But man, is it fun!
It is, yeah.
It's so enjoyable, like to just button mash and like once you like get that combo down and you kind of figure it
Hmm.
out on your own and kind of just discover the game a little bit. It's fun, but it takes hours and hours and hours of practice and patience to get
Yeah.
good. And I never had that patience. So I've always been terrible. That goes back as far as I want to say it was called Street Fighter. Was it Street Fighter versus X-Men or Capcom
X
versus X-Men or something? X-Men versus Capcom. Was that the
X-Men
very
versus
first?
Street Fighter.
Was that the very first one? Right before it became
For
Marvel versus Capcom.
Yeah, I believe so. Aside from that, they first released Marvel Superheroes. That was the first Marvel superhero fighting game.
Well, the one that crossed over with the Capcom characters.
Yeah, it was X-Men versus Street Fighter.
Okay, that was
Yeah,
the very first time I played it. There's a bowling alley up the street from my house, and I remember we used to go there and play in the arcade because it was literally
yeah,
like a 5 minute walk. So we used to
nice.
play there, and
Yeah,
that was my introduction to these. And I was like, "This is awesome," but I'm so bad at it. And
yeah,
then, a couple years later, I think we skipped over playing at home the first Marvel versus Capcom, but we
yeah,
played that in the arcade when they got it. And then one of my friends had a Dreamcast, and he bought this,
yeah,
and him and my other friend literally spent days and days and days and morning and night playing this thing to where I didn't have that kind of time. There was also other things I wanted to do even if I had that time,
yeah.
that I never got nearly as much practice as that. And I remember this guy David, who was one of them. He told me one night, he's like, I bet you anything I will beat all three of your characters before you can kill one of mine. It's like, all right, I'll take that bet.
Yeah.
Figured there's no way, like impossible. I don't even think I got him to half health on one character, and he didn't swap in or out.
Oh man.
He
Oh
stuck
man.
with he stuck with the one guy and took all
Yeah.
three of mine out
That's
because
usually like the way I play too. Like I always
yeah,
liked trying to just, overpower my opponent's team with just one character
yeah.
without switching out. That was always
But
a challenge.
well, yeah, but he did this with zero effort against me because
Oh wow.
one, I wasn't nearly as good as him, and two, like I
Yeah.
said, him and my buddy Vince had put in so much time and so much practice into this game that
Right.
they were the kind of guys who would get you stuck in, those infinite combos. I
Yeah.
called it
And
unlimited combos. I meant infinite combos.
yeah.
They used to go to like the local like golf and stuff type places
Yeah.
and like drive out. We're in like the suburb of LA.
Mhm.
They used to drive out into like Orange County, to like the golf places like out there like Camelot and stuff,
Yeah.
and challenge people out there just because they were
Yeah.
so good and they would just dominate everybody. Not saying
Right.
like, they were good enough to go to Evo. They weren't like that good, but on
Mhm.
a local level, these guys just had it in the bag. Like there's no beating them. And
Yeah.
it was fun to watch, but it was terrible to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
I
So
think there was I don't know if you guys experienced this or if you experienced this, Joe, but like uh playing arcades back then, especially fighting games, was very intimidating because if
oh
you wanted to play this specific game, a fighting game, and you just wanted to play, the story or fight, someone that's at your level at least, and you get a guy coming and gets that quarter and just sets it on the
sets it on
arcade.
top. Yep.
Yeah, I get so much anxiety whenever that happens.
Yep.
I'm like, oh crap, like who's this new challenger? Like because I remember getting I still experienced that even when I was in college, because they had a bunch of arcades and they had a decent amount of good, like Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 arcades over there.
Yeah.
So during my breaks, I would jump on there and own the arcade for a good 10-15 minutes, and then after a while, like people are starting to line up trying to beat me.
Yeah.
I'm like, how long can I go? Like, I don't know, like this guy's strategy and whatnot. And that was such a cool experience because I made a decent amount of friends from that because people in that community were either really toxic or really friendly. There was like
Yep.
almost no in between.
Even some of the best guys could be like your best friend.
Yeah.
Like it's not like and I hate to say this about this game, but uh when it comes to a game like League of Legends,
Yeah.
the higher up you get, it seems like the more toxic these people get. I'm not saying there aren't
There.
going to
Yeah.
be that, but I feel
Yeah.
like the majority of them are toxic. They
Even
don't want to be your friend. They
yeah,
don't
even to
like
each
you.
other.
Exactly. And not I'm not going to go on a tangent about that game. That's all I'm going to say about it. But it just
Yeah.
shows that like the difference of like top level players. Some of these could, well, back then, this was in the 90s, I'm
Mhm.
sure you're talking about. Not saying League was in the 90s, but talking like the height of League and the height of
Yeah.
this, of
Right.
like MVC, like Street Fighter 2 and like Third
Yeah.
Strike being in the arcade. And
Yeah.
even like the Street Fighter alphas, like just, playing on the Dreamcast with like friends and meeting friends, like some of the top people you'll ever meet. And okay, I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. I also don't even mean like league on like the world stage, with
Yeah.
people competing in these like top level competitions. I'm talking local people you meet who are like hardcore league players, who hit some of like the top brackets, those people, like people you see on a daily basis, like at work and stuff, who play league religiously but aren't like tournament level players.
Yeah.
Extremely toxic. But these like old like fighting game players were some of the coolest people you'd meet, or the
Yeah.
majority of them, you know. And a lot of them back then just they wanted you to keep playing them. One, because I'm sure the gratification of beating you to, 7 ways to Sunday,
Yeah.
but like the enjoyment of like watching somebody learn and teaching
Yeah.
them, giving you advice and trying to like take their advice,
Yeah.
like you build a bond with these people. And it was so fun back then. And
Yeah, it
knowing that
was.
every quarter was just like more money down the drain if you didn't learn. So you
Yeah.
had to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, all those quarters wasted never did anything for me, but I still threw them in and still had fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I
I,
think
I can't say enough good about these games.
yeah, especially these fighting games. I remember, I'll just share one experience, was when I was playing Third Strike, and I wasn't too familiar with the game, but it's a Street Fighter game. I'm like, I know the basics. So I would, beat a few players here and there. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I meet this player, and he played very defensively and very like counterattack type of player. And I remember doing a super Hadouken, and this guy parried all of the whole thing, and I'm like, how did you do that? What is that? And he ended up like teaching me how to do it, and I still have to this day can't like master that to that
Damn.
level anyway.
Wait,
Yeah.
that wasn't the parries were in Third Strike?
Yes.
I don't know. I was thinking they were in Alpha. Okay, but either way, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just the level of skill that goes into some of these games,
Yeah.
and that goes back. Sorry, I don't mind carrying this into a little bit of
Yeah. That's
old
good.
arcade fighting game talk. We're definitely going to finish the top five. So,
Yeah.
but this is like stuff you rarely get to talk about with people nowadays. But back then, like, I love playing Primal Rage. Do you remember that one?
Oh shoot. Sorry.
All good.
Oh, Primal Rage. Yeah, that one was
Yeah.
amazing.
One thing I
Uh,
liked about it is it wasn't the typical like like back forward, like down forward, and like whatever, like light punch or whatever. You had to hold the buttons down,
yeah.
do the motion, and release the buttons to attack. Do you remember that?
Yeah. It
So
was a lot of charge attacks, right?
yeah, but you had to hold the attack buttons down
Yeah.
to do your special moves. Not like a super, but like just like
Like
your
abilities and
like
stuff.
non-basic attacks. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to hold them and then like, down forward or back forward, whatever it was, and release. So everything you always knew where it would be like back forward, light punch, or down for, down into light, I'm sorry, down into forward and light punch or heavy punch or whatever,
Yeah.
would do the move. So all these games, you learn these motions and you get into this like muscle memory, and then that game completely threw it off. And I kind of feel that was a little bit of its downfall, was it
Hmm.
kind of it went against the grain of what all the other companies were doing, and
Yeah.
people didn't appreciate it for what it was. But I loved it. I thought it was so cool, and just being able to play as like dinosaurs and just
Yeah, that was great.
others asses as dinosaurs.
Yeah, I think the 90s for some reason had like a huge thing for dinosaurs. Like they had TV series, animated series. It's when Jurassic Park came out, like,
Yeah,
and then the video games as well was very dinosaur dominated. So
yeah, it was great.
yeah.
Yeah, I love dinosaurs growing up, so I love this.
I know, right? When you're, this is a funny thing too, because when usually Luis from Comics Podcast brings this up like every once in a while, and he says like, "Oh yeah, it's always cute when when you're younger and you love dinosaurs. Everyone thinks you're cool or cute, but then when you're over 30 years old and you're saying
Oh
you love
man.
dinosaurs, it's just weird for people."
Oh man, that hits home because I still love dinosaurs and I'm well
No,
over
same.
30.
That's why
If
we're
I
good friends.
I know, right? If I can have a conversation about dinosaurs every week, I probably would. they're amazing. Like
That's
this
it,
has
guys.
been
We're gonna do another segment for our podcast where we just talk nothing about
about
dinosaurs. So
dinosaurs. We're gonna start a
yeah.
new podcast about dinosaurs. Probably
Oh, that's
not.
great.
Maybe someday.
We probably
Uh,
will.
and I really want to go to God, like the Natural History Museum because I
Oh yeah, it's
recently
great.
bought like a new
Mhm.
camera
Yeah,
and I want to go. Like there's dinosaurs there or fossils.
fossils and
I want
stuff.
to go
Yeah.
take pictures of these things and
Well,
see them again,
all
but
right.
it's not open.
We'll add that to the list once it
Yeah.
reopens.
But back onto the fighting games. One last
Yeah,
thing. We can't have a podcast without mentioning Killer Instinct. Or I'm sorry, can't have a podcast about fighting games and not mention Killer Instinct.
exactly. I was gonna
Uh,
bring that up before we switched over. So
oh, nice. That was a game. I loved it. I didn't love the Xbox One version though.
me
The
neither.
one when they brought it back, it was so
Yeah,
bad, and I just couldn't believe how poorly made that game was.
yeah,
And I thought that maybe it was just like kind of my disdain for Xbox at the time. Although
yeah.
I absolutely love Xbox now. I'm a huge Xbox fan. I've converted to the dark side.
Nice.
But because the Xbox One was an embarrassment when they announced it and it didn't do itself any
Yeah,
favors the first few years.
yeah.
But it might have been from that, or I thought it might have been from that. I tried to give it a chance every couple of years. I tried to play it,
Hmm.
and it just wasn't fun. And I went back not too long ago to try to play it,
Hmm.
thinking, okay, now that like I'm back on board with Xbox,
Yeah.
maybe I can put like that aside, and maybe I can look at this game objectively and enjoy it. And no, it still sucks. Like that Killer Instinct
I,
is still really bad.
yeah, I never bothered to get that game or that remaster. I only played the arcade version and the SNES. Oh, and
Okay.
N64 Killer Instinct Gold.
In the arcade, yeah, those are the
Yeah.
ones I played. And oh, I think you said arcade.
Hmm.
Those are great. Like those are the only ones you need to play.
Yeah.
Don't if you're listening to this podcast, don't bother with the Xbox version. If you love it, feel free to comment and tell me why I'm wrong. But anyway, we can
Yeah.
move on from that now. I feel like bringing up fighting games will spawn its own conversation.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do another podcast version for that.
Oh yeah, we're
But
gonna definitely have to.
but yeah, that was my third pick, Marvel versus Capcom 2.
Okay,
So back
so
to you, Joe.
my third pick is probably the most obvious game that anyone would expect from me. The PS4 Spider-Man.
PS4 Spider-Man. Great.
Yes. From Insomniac Games.
Yes.
It's so good. Like,
Wait,
what's
let
up?
me go ahead and because that's actually one of one of my other picks. I knew we were gonna have another similar pick, so that's I'll put that on in the background for you.
Sweet. Thank
Play
you.
it back a little bit. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So, first off, look at that loading screen if you're watching our
Amazing.
YouTube. It's amazing. Get it? So, my like my adult intro to Spider-Man video games was Shattered Dimensions. I'm old, so I was an adult when that game came out, well into my 20s. And I thought this was great. I'm just like, this is it. Like, this is the pinnacle of Spider-Man games. It's not gonna get better than this because like everybody praised the PS2. Was it the Amazing Spider-Man
It was
that came
the
out?
movie Spider-Man, the Spider-Man movie
Yes,
one.
there you go.
Yeah.
Everybody praised it. It was cool. It had like the web swinging through the city and stuff. But it, I don't know. It was good, but it wasn't. I think people look at it back with nostalgia, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell anybody. I'm not gonna tell you that you're wrong. You love that game. I think it was cool. I have nothing against it. But I feel like this new Spider-Man is what that game should have been. In terms of like the open world feeling and being able to swing from building to building and being able to do tricks in the air. It was just
Yeah.
so fun being able to do this and just seeing the
Yeah.
world come to life the way it did. And then like the little like secrets that are hidden, through the city, doing like the Black Cat, like little what were they? The Oh my god, what did you do that? Like the little like black cat things you have to find? There's like 12 of
Yeah,
them.
they were like quests where you uh took Peter Parker's skills in photography, and then you have to like snipe little hidden black
Yeah.
cats that are
Yeah,
posted
they're
like
like
on a building or
little like
something.
figures
Or
or something, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Like just little secrets like that, being able to visit the grave. I won't say who for anyone who hasn't played it. Just little things you wouldn't know were in that. And again, I'm not saying that, the Spider-Man 2 game or Spider-Man game, whatever, on PS2 didn't have stuff like that. But I felt the way they did it in this one, it was so seamless, and the way everything went about, or went about in the game was just, it was perfection.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I think without that Spider-Man 2, we wouldn't have this
It,
game.
and that's why I won't say anything bad about it. I think
Yeah,
that kind of set the standard, and this perfected it.
exactly.
And then being able to see like Doc Ock kind of lose his mind, kind of start from, well, I'm trying to remember, but if you go back and start from the beginning of the game, I kind of feel like you would be able to look back and see that he has already started to lose his mind.
Yeah,
You
a
just
bit.
don't realize it when you're playing the game, because you just think he's some eccentric, scientist
Hmm.
who slowly goes nuts. But I think he already kind of is gone nuts. He just hasn't fully like admitted it to himself, and hasn't shown anything, because he's clearly building something and he's not telling Peter everything.
Yeah.
And so I liked seeing that. I like seeing him, kind of lose his mind. The boss fights in this game were phenomenal. Being able to like just tear apart like buildings and stuff like that. And then one of the hardest fights in the game was when you fought Scorpion and Rhino,
Yeah, you fought them
because
both at the same time.
in the it was like a shipping yard, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was so frustrating. Of all the
it
fights,
was.
I think that one took me the most tries. I kept messing up, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if other people beat this thing on the first try or not, but it was the only fight that really like gave me trouble, but not where I was just like, this fight sucks. I hate this game. It was just, man, like I need to keep trying because this is ridiculous. I need to
Was it
beat
like,
this.
was it like Demon Souls level or Dark
No, no,
Souls
no,
level?
it wasn't that bad. Nah, no, it wasn't like Demon Souls or whatever. Which that's a whole other podcast we could have, talking about Demon Souls. Not even Dark Souls, just Demon Souls.
Demon Souls, yeah.
Yeah, but so oh, like I love that. Like so, it's boss fights, the
Mhm.
humor with when he's talking to what was her name? Was her name Yuri,
Yeah, I
the
believe
cop?
so.
And he's doing
Mhm.
like the whole spider cop bit with her,
Yeah,
and she's just like, "Oh my god, will you please stop?" And he just keeps
yeah,
doing it,
yeah.
And then the
A lot of dad
Jameson like
jokes.
just talking over the radio, just talking trash the whole time about you.
Yeah.
I love, like, there's just so much cool stuff in this game, and then of course the suits. Just
Oh
the
my God, the
variety of
suits.
suits in this game was awesome.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to say about the game in short,
Okay.
why I loved it so much.
Awesome. Well, if you're tuning into our podcast on YouTube, you can see the gameplay that's being shown right here. And to go back, this is my number 4 pick as well.
Number three.
So, or number 3. Well, I think I'm on number 4 for me, since it's going back to me.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, you're right.
Spider-Man is my pick. Um, I knew we were gonna have one more similar choice for that, and I knew it was gonna be Spider-Man.
I had a feeling
So
too. I had a feeling it was going to be Maximum Carnage and possibly this, and it was
yeah,
both.
we were right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this game came out back in 2018 through Insomniac Games, published by Sony, and I remember seeing the trailers for these, the leak trailer and the teaser, the full trailer, the gameplay trailer, and I was so stoked for this game. But I for some reason I didn't buy it on day of. I decided to wait until there was a game of the year, because I don't personally like buying games for full price. That's the game I'm really anticipating. But I guess at that time I was more into I'm not sure what I was into at that time. I think I was traveling a lot, so I didn't
Yeah,
bother
you
playing
were.
video games so much. But I knew it was on my list of games to eventually get in the future. So I finally got it back in, I believe, 2019 or 2020, when they had all the DLC available already, and they fixed all the, well, whatever issues they had and updates. So this was released through PS4, and now I believe PS5 as well, which looks amazing on that system. I can't wait to replay that game on the PS5 whenever I get one. Um,
That's the trick.
but the
Get one.
yeah, but the comic book reference kind of like takes a little bit from everything that's happened to Spider-Man, because this isn't high school Spider-Man. This is much older Spider-Man that has, like a lot of gadgets, a lot of abilities, and history that has happened to him already. Um, but the regarding the story, this is a story on its own. It's its own video game universe, which is amazing, because whoever did the writing for this did a very good job.
They were definitely a Spider-Man fan.
Yeah,
What,
they
like the
did
writing
their
team
yeah,
had to be. There's no
yeah.
way, sorry to cut you off real quick, but there's no way the team who made this wasn't at least like a lead designer or two, or lead writer or two,
Mhm.
weren't like lifelong Spider-Man fans. That was too perfect.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I
Go ahead
agree.
and finish. I just had to throw
I
that out there.
No, it's perfect. I completely agree with that. And when it comes to the graphics and cinematics, I was so blown away. This is like the best looking Spider-Man game that I've ever played. And even jumping back into it after playing the game, it still wows me every time I web swing throughout the city. I get so much joy just doing that. Like sometimes I'm trying to figure out what game to play or what to do throughout the day, and I'll just pop in this randomly. I'm like, you know what, I want to web swing through New York City, and do some tricks, or just listen to some music and web swing throughout the
Yeah.
city.
Just do some
Yeah,
tricks in the air and see how many times you could spin before you hit the ground.
yeah, or find the highest point in whatever city that I'm
Yeah.
in. That's and diving off it. That's
Yeah.
always so much
I
fun.
love doing that.
Yeah. The cinematics are amazing, especially during the combat sequences when you're fighting bosses, or just even just regular cop chases and whatnot. Like especially the car chases. Um, the sound and music are top notch. I believe they did a lot of work and research into getting the sound effects right when it comes to the web swinging and the web attacks, and the impact that it makes, and also just some of the banter that the villains and Spider-Man makes. The electricity sounds, everything was very well done. Even the score for it sounds very cinematic. Like this could possibly be a movie, an animated movie on its own.
Oh,
And
most definitely.
yeah, and people would love it. If I saw this in theaters, and you just take the cinematic aspect of it, it will blow you away.
Uh,
Overall, my experience was amazing.
Amazing
uh,
Spider-Man.
Amazing Spider-Man. Replayability is really good too, as they released a bunch of other DLC, and trying to get you to collect more of his costumes as well. Because the thing I really liked about the costumes is um, it actually makes a difference. Like the abilities that you get to use depending
Oh
on which
yeah.
costume you have, it all comes together very nicely, and it's not just the skin. So if you guys are one of those uh, Marvel Avengers fans out there, like this is the way it should have been. Um,
Oh, most definitely.
this is what I think a lot of people were actually expecting, like very, very story driven. The abilities and whatnot make sense, the leveling up and whatnot. Because if you end up playing this and you play Marvel's Avengers, it kind of takes a bit of how this game was made,
It feels like
And
a tech demo for this game.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
it feels
And
like they stripped this game down to its like bare, like bare bones, like a skeleton of it. There you go.
yeah,
And slapped on some Avengers skins and made it
yep,
online.
yeah. I feel like they yeah, basically took this and the idea of a game like Destiny and just mashed it together, and it was terrible, unfortunately.
I don't I wouldn't go as far as to say terrible. Promising, had a little bit of fun, but falls flat real fast.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
because
like
I still found myself enjoying the game when I first started, because the fact that you could play as the Avengers and some of the abilities that they can do and whatnot, but it just got bland towards the end, unfortunately, and they're still trying to fix it. So maybe if they release more heroes and make the combat system a little more different, even though it's I thought it was well done, but the villains that you have to fight are just uh, I feel like non-dimensional.
yeah, they just what's the word I'm looking for? They need to like overhaul. Kind of like I don't know. I know you weren't a big MMO fan, but the way they took Final Fantasy 14 when it
Yeah.
first launched and it was a complete disaster, they completely took it offline. They had Yoshi P from Square Enix come in and just literally redo the game from the ground up, relaunched it as a Realm Reborn, and people lost their minds over it and has probably its highest player base to this day.
This
It
is
was
true.
out for like a year and a half as like the
Mhm.
original before they pulled it offline, I think. Ended up releasing it in 2014 and it's just going strong. Like and the game just gets better and better and each expansion just expands or expands obviously. But I mean it just like it pulls the story like or even more story and it sucks you in even more. And I feel like if maybe not to that extent, but if they did that concept with the
Mhm.
Avengers, kind of just, you know what, we screwed up, sorry, let us take it offline and do a relaunch. You know, spend like 6 months, on it.
Yeah.
Relaunch it, give you some goodies, for people who had bought it or whatever, just
Mhm.
something. They could really make, a really good like games as a service game with that.
Yeah.
Sort of like Destiny. Not that I like Destiny, but they can take that concept and make it better. I feel like they kind of just threw a cheap knockoff of that, out there to just make some money. It was a cash grab. It was a cash grab and it was a really poor way to show off the new Miss Marvel,
Uh-huh.
where they could have done so much more with Miss Marvel. I felt like they wanted to showcase her and make people excited for her and they built this
Yeah.
whole big online game to
Yeah.
showcase a character that nobody was invested in. But they threw the other heroes in there cuz if I'm not mistaken, the initial like trailers of the game didn't even show her. And
Yeah, not so
then
much.
you realize that when the game launches, like it's her story.
Yeah.
She could have been such a cool character. I think to this day people love her, and that's really good. Like,
Mhm.
I'm happy that people love her. She's really cool. But I feel like they shortchanged her a bit by kind of shoehorning her into this game and using these Avengers to help sell her,
Yeah.
by giving you this half-assed game.
Yeah.
And that sucks. Like that really sucks for her character. That really sucks for who created her,
Mhm.
and all that. And they didn't do her justice and they didn't do her any favors in the long run.
Mhm.
But I feel like if they kind of strip the game down and kind of rebuild, they can make that a really good game.
I
It
know.
has the elements and it has the structure to make it a good game. They
Yeah.
just need to put the content and the love into that game that it needs.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think one way that I know it's kind of left field, but I believe if Insomniac Games and Marvel team up together to make another like awesome game like Spider-Man, and kind of like take the same formula that they did with the movies, where they release, self-titled movies for each character, or video games for each character. Like the next one that they would do is Captain America, and then one for Thor, and then one for the rest of the characters, and
Yeah.
then do a big like event game like Marvel's Avengers. I think that would have been really well done. like
Hell,
that.
even if they did like you buy the Marvel's Avengers game and say like what is it, 5 characters? There's Black Widow, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk. Was there one
Captain
more?
America.
Captain America. Even if they did the launch with those, oh, and Miss Marvel. So
Yeah.
let's just say those 6 characters. If they did, instead of trying to tie everybody's story together immediately, if they did like what did I say, 5 characters? If they did like 6 chapters, they did like an hour and a half of each character. You get to know them. You get to develop these characters, and then in the end they tie it with like all of them, like kind of like everybody got their own chapter. Like an hour, maybe 2 hours long of a chapter, whatever, and then they tie it together at the end. Whereas I felt like, at the beginning you're playing as what is it, Thor, and then Iron Man, then you're Hulk, then you're Black Widow. The next thing you know, you're Hulk again for like an hour. It was so like it was jumping back and forth. Every character plays different. Like next thing you know, you're this character, then you're this character, then you're at the like the war table thing, and you get to pick whatever character you want. You're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. I mean, did you
No,
actually finish the game?
no, it got boring. I just felt like it was
Huh.
all over the place.
So I
But
ended up powering through to finish the game, and it actually kind of does that. It plays a little bit of each character in order to bring them together and to go into the next story arc, and then they eventually do end up teaming up together at the end and fighting a boss. I don't want to spoil for the
of
people that
course,
played it, but yeah, it actually does do that, but the execution wasn't there.
because my experience playing it, I didn't know that. Like, it just felt like I was playing as this guy, then this guy, then this guy, and
Mhm.
then this guy, and then next thing you know, I'm playing as sorry if I pronounced her name incorrectly, but
Mhm.
it's Miss Marvel, like Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now why am I playing her?
Yeah,
You know,
it does jump sequences in order to get to the next story arc. But
See, I feel like if they would have done like full like
like a focus, right?
chapters, like
Yeah.
just focused 100% on this character, let you play as this character, let you understand why you're playing this character, and then kind of do like a sort of an ending to theirs, not like an ending, but like
Like a
a kind of
tie-in.
a like sort of like a excuse me, kind of like a almost to be continued type moment where it's like, okay, you see the story arc end or start, like not arc, but like the story piece start come to an end,
Yeah.
but it's going to lead to something else. And then this guy's does, and then this guy's does. And I get at the beginning, it's just like there's a huge thing that happens, like, the bridge is destroyed, everybody shows up. Let me just play as Thor and everybody's there, and then take me into the next sequence. I don't need to play as all 5 of them or 4 of them, right out the gate. I don't
Yeah.
care. Let me just play as a couple of them, and then or one of them, and then give me their individual stories, kind of the way it jumps to Hulk actually. And you play
Yeah.
as Hulk for like an hour and a half. If
Hmm.
they showed that kind of care to everybody,
Hmm.
but actually like put story instead of literally you're just running on smashing things as Hulk for an hour. And that's really weird coming from me because I said in the comics I like when Hulk is just running on smashing things,
Yeah.
not when it's story driven Hulk.
Yeah,
So
that makes complete sense, Joe.
yeah, so I guess in my video games I want story driven Hulk, but you get what
Right.
I'm saying. I
Yeah.
feel like if they showed the love and care to every character like that and then tied them in instead of just bouncing back and forth so much, like you
Hmm.
said, the execution was poor.
Hmm.
They kind of took what I'm asking for, but they executed it poorly. And I think personally, that might have been a better way to execute it.
Yeah, I
Give me a
agree.
reason to care about like why this character is in the game. I
Yeah,
care about the
because
character because it's character I love, but
yeah.
give me a reason to care that they're here.
Right. And I think they do just fall short into when it comes to character development, because I started enjoying whichever character that I was switching to. I started enjoying and getting invested with the character I was playing. But then right at the edge where I'm about to get invested, or I'm already invested, they switch it up and it kind of ruins the pacing and the rhythm of
Exactly.
building that character development. So yeah, I think the other thing too, just this last tangent for it. I think the game was just trying. It couldn't figure out what kind of game it wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Like there's some parts where I felt like it was trying to be the Spider-Man game. There's some parts I felt like it was trying to be, like an online MMO type of game, like Destiny and whatnot, where it had like loots and whatnot when
Yeah.
you travel through the levels. And then the other one was kind of a little bit like Ultimate Alliance, which I was a big fan of, but it just didn't execute it the way that Ultimate Alliance did. And just piecing all those together just didn't mix well.
Yeah. Like it didn't have its own identity.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my rant for Marvel's Avengers. That was strictly, coming from just the Spider-Man game.
Yeah.
This is gold.
It is. It's gold.
Yeah.
Which are you so you're done?
Yes, that was
Which
my number
leads
4 pick.
which leads me to my number 4, and
Was
it's gonna be
Spider-Man.
Miles Morales.
Oh, great.
So I count this one because people call it just the DLC or just this expansion, but it released as its own game. It didn't release as, a DLC, the way like Infamous Second Son had
Yeah.
Infamous First Light that became its own story. Like you could just
Mhm.
buy First Light now. You don't need to own Infamous. Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, had Adewale's story called Freedom Cry. You had to have Assassin's Creed 4 to play Freedom Cry. Now Freedom Cry is a standalone game. You could buy just that and play just that if you want. Miles Morales wasn't like that. It launched day of its own game, its own story. It obviously connects to this, but it's still its own story. You don't need to play this for Spider-Man to understand it. It's obviously a better experience if you do. From my understanding, you have not beat it, so I won't give any story away.
Honestly, I still haven't played it.
Wow, come on, man.
Like
Um,
I want to make sure I have the time available, like, a few days straight. That way I could
yeah,
just play it all the way through and
it's a short
enjoy it.
game. It's like
Yeah.
8 hours. You could beat in like 8 hours.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so it is a shorter game, but I feel like they gave you the full Spider-Man experience in less time. It sucked paying $50 for it, knowing you were getting only an 8 hour experience. But I'll tell you, it was a good 8 hour experience.
Is there a
And
lot of replayability too, just like the Spider-Man game?
not as much, but there's definitely challenges in the game. There's definitely stuff to do and reasons to go back and keep playing it. But people were 100%ing it within a couple days. Whereas most people, I knew a lot of people who 100%ed just Spider-Man in about a week. You can do this one in about 2 days, maybe 3 days tops.
Oh
Because
wow,
it
it's
is,
really
it,
short.
yeah, definitely. But the content that's in
It's quality.
it's pure quality. Like
Yeah.
I will not say anything, I promise. But one of the ending scenes,
Yeah.
like the peak of the story,
Mhm.
is one of the saddest, most gut-wrenching things I've seen in a video game in a long time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like there's something that
I'll
happens.
have a tissue box right next to me ready.
Yes, you should. For more than one reason. But that aside, so no, it's so sad, and I kept telling everybody because I had beat it before anybody else I knew, and I was like, just please, like, just play it, just beat it. Like, I need to talk to somebody about this, and Shelby was one of
Yeah.
them. Like, I beat it
Nice.
before, and I was like, please beat it. Like, we need to discuss this ending. We need to
Yeah.
talk about what happened because I'm like my head's still messed up about it
Oh
because
man.
it's so sad. But it's not a cop out. It's not cheesy. It's not like uh and I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, I'm sure, for anyone listening. I did not like the final moments of The Last of Us. I felt that was the ultimate cop out type of ending, right?
Yeah, people were very 50-50 with that.
Yeah, people either really loved it or hated it.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
loved the whole game up to that moment, but I hated that. Like I absolutely despised the way Naughty Dog ended that game, where it was just cut to black. Like it's a cliche, like
Mhm.
college, like film student wannabe artistic thing, where they don't know how else to end something, and you just do like a cut to black type scene. Naughty Dog is way better than that, and that's
Yeah.
what they did.
Maybe
You
it was a
know,
learning experience for them.
they made 3 Uncharted games prior to this. They knew how to end the game. They made every Uncharted feel like it was the last game and made you want more, and then they gave you more and still did that. They were perfect at doing this. They knew what they were doing. But so that aside, it wasn't like that kind of ending where it was like a cliche type ending. It had kind of a small cliche to it, but it
Mhm.
wasn't a full on like, because everything's so overdone at this point. It's
Yeah.
hard to end things and be 100% original.
Yeah.
So obviously, I'm not going to say it's not completely void of any sort of cliche, but it wasn't something like that. They weren't trying to be artistic, but they hit you in the feels hard. Like
Nice.
when you see what happens, like
Yeah.
as you see it pan out, you're just like, no, like no, like there's got to be another way. I'm not gonna say what it is or who it involves or what it
Yeah.
involves or anything, but uh the ending of this one, okay, I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. The ending of Spider-Man was really sad. I know you know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Hmm.
This hit me harder than the ending of that one, like of
Nice.
the first Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and it was rough to watch. It was really rough to watch.
Did you cry?
I wanted to. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna even try to like hide that. Like I got choked up
Yeah. Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the ending of this. It was really
Oh
sad,
man.
but it was just done so well.
I
And
love it when games are able to do that too.
yeah, there's words I want to use to describe it, but I know if I
Yeah.
say something, I'll start to give things away. Like
Yeah.
the words that I want to use and to describe it best will give too much away.
No worries. I'll try to get to it. Hopefully, by the end of this month. I know I'm still, I still have Middle West to get through. You still got Planet Hulk, and
Yeah.
and then I'll jump into the video games after. Hopefully.
Yeah. So I'll get to Planet Hulk someday.
Please, by the end of the month.
That's 9 days. No
That's plenty of
promises.
time. All
So
right.
anyway,
So that
so
was your
that's
number 4, right?
yes. 3 Spider-Man games on a list of 5.
Yeah, I'm almost there too.
Yeah. I guess I
I
can't feel
really
too
wanted
bad.
to.
You're only one
Yeah.
behind me.
All right. So for my final one has got to be this one, and that is TMNT Turtles in Time.
You
This.
know, sorry, before you go on, I really considered this for my list. I'm glad I didn't. Go ahead, finish.
Perfect. Yeah, so TMNT, man, Turtles in Time was such a blast growing up. After seeing the cartoons and knowing that you could play as the Ninja Turtles in a arcade game was phenomenal. I've had like such good memories playing this game. The game came out in 1991 on the arcade and came out on Super NES, I believe in 1992. It was produced or developed and published by Konami, and they had released this game multiple times. First one was through the arcade, second one was SNES, and later on through either downloadable content or it was like a secret unlock when you defeated or when you finished one of the Ninja Turtle games for the GameCube and PS2, I believe. Um, but man, this game was so much fun. The comic book reference takes a little bit of references throughout the entirety of the comic book series, but not directly. The graphics and cinematics were really well done at that time. When it came to the sprites, the sound effects, and that intro to the first level, Big Apple, 3 a.m. Great voiceover for sure. It sounded almost exactly like
Oh
that, right?
no, it was way worse.
Yeah.
The game was worse.
Yeah, but
Oh
the
man.
music and the sound was at that time was really well done for my take. It made the gameplay experience very lighthearted and very childish, but it also felt like a legit like comic book story. when it came to the music, specifically for the 80s cartoon Turtles. Because if you ever read the original Turtles, it's very dark and gritty and very violent. So the combat and the story was pretty okay. I knew I was gonna fight Krang and the Shredder eventually, so it was kind of obvious like who the villains were gonna be, and the fact that we did get to fight a lot of the villains throughout was really cool. The overall experience and replayability was so much fun because this was a game, specifically if you played the arcade, you were able to play with three other players and you got to choose who or what turtle you wanted to be, which was super awesome and very what's the word, you always me and my friends always fought like who gets to be which turtle.
Yeah.
So that was always an issue. But just being able to play with your with your close friends and going through an entire game, if you didn't lose or have enough quarters, which was very difficult at that time, because the bosses were, I don't know, they seemed very difficult when when we were kids. But I think the last time I played it was maybe a few years back and was able to go through it without burning through like a $10 set of quarters. So and then replaying it on the SNES with one other friend, which was super cool. Yeah, this was definitely one of my top five when it came to Ninja Turtles and comic book adaptations to video games. um, yeah, that's all I can say about it.
So I want to talk about this game a little bit too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I
Why can't you?
yeah, oh my God, I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
this game. So I do mix up events of this game, and I believe it was Ninja Turtles 2. No, yes. Which one is it? Ninja Turtles 2 that plays like this on the NES, I think?
Yeah,
Because the first one was the terrible, terrible top down
it was
when you're
like
in the turtle van, and then
Dark
you get out.
Souls.
Yeah, you get out, and it takes you into like the sewers and stuff, and
Yeah,
yeah, that game sucks. But I think it was that one that plays it. It looks almost identical to this one,
yeah.
correct?
It was Turtles 2 arcade.
Okay, this is part four. What was number three then?
Manhattan Project.
Okay, I might be mixing up those three. There was one I remember where you're walking through a city, you're fighting the Foot Clan, of course, and then you have to stop every so often because this giant like ball comes rolling down out of like off of like steps or something. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's one of like the
Uh,
first couple levels.
yeah, yeah. I
It's
can't.
completely
It
ridiculous.
might have been Manhattan Project, I believe.
Okay, so I mix up these games because they all play identical. They're all
Except for the first one.
yeah, of course, like two, three, and
Yeah.
four. They're
Mhm.
all side-scrolling games. They're all beat up, side-scrolling beat 'em ups. You play as all four. And two, I want to say, is the one where you get to fight Bebop and Rocksteady, right?
Yeah,
And I think you fight them together.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so excuse me if I mix it up, but like I said, I've played all of these extensively for like probably 100 hours each. Like I used to
Yeah.
just binge these games as a kid over and over. And anytime I was at an arcade, I used to play this over and over. But yeah, they're just so fun. Like the just the nonsense, like the banter in between, and like the stuff. Like when somebody brought this up recently when oh God, what is it that he says? Like my toe or something like that, right?
Ow, my toe. He
Yes,
says
like
something
it's
like that.
Donatello, or do they all say it?
They all say it.
Okay,
Yeah.
like just it's stupid. Like it's just so
Yeah.
like cheesy, but it's so fun.
Yeah, because turtles love pizza. So.
Of course. Yeah, so it's cheesy.
Yeah.
And then is this one where you fight? Uh, this actually might have been the fight. I think I missed
Mm.
it on the screen. Where you fight the metal?
Yeah,
Uh,
the metal turtle.
yes. Okay. So there's a lot of cool stuff about this, and I think the last time I played it was in 2017, where I got to. Is that the xenomorph in the background?
Yeah.
Why is the xenomorph in here? I don't remember
Crossover.
that. Was the xenomorph really in this game? I don't remember that.
Um,
Or
I'm
am
pretty
I like
sure.
going crazy?
I mean, not the actual alien, but
That looked just like the xenomorph.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, like you said, it's been a long time. So, well, actually, I'm sorry, this one specifically, I believe it hasn't been that long. A couple years
Mhm.
back, a friend of mine, we used to play like D&D and stuff, and he brought a Wii over that
Yeah,
had every NES, SNES, 64, and I think I want to say GameCube game
nice. Yeah, it
on
modded.
it. Yeah, I don't condone mods for anyone listening. I don't condone illegal activity. But he brought it over. I didn't tell him to. He just showed up with it. And we just went through and we were just playing all these old games. And when we got to
Nice.
this one, we
Yeah,
sat there from the moment the game started and we played till we beat it.
nice.
And I hadn't beat that game since, like probably elementary or maybe junior high, depending on how old I was. I don't remember.
Damn, that must have been satisfying.
Oh, it was great. I hadn't
Yeah,
played it in so long that,
yeah.
we just binged the hell out of that game. And I
It,
believe we went back and played some of the old ones too, which is again
yeah,
why I'm still like I still forget what was part of what game, but they were all
yeah.
like one big game to me because they all played so close together and or such like a similar style,
Right.
and they
I
were
think
all
the I
sorry.
think the only game that I haven't played of the Turtles is I know they released one for the PS4. I didn't get to open that up when I ended up selling most of my collection.
Yeah,
So
I never played it.
yeah, because I know they released. Shoot, I'm trying to remember the publisher or developer that did the Transformers game that came out for the PS4, which was amazing.
Yeah,
But
Devastation.
yes, the Transformers Devastation,
It was
which
almost like
unfortunately,
cartoon looking, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like 3D world, but in like cell shaded like graphics.
Yes, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's Devastation.
yeah, and unfortunately, I think Sony lost the license, or someone lost the licensing to that, so you can't even buy it online anymore. So if
Yeah.
I wanted it back, I need to, get a hard copy. But I think, um, I can't check, but I think the same developers came out with a Ninja Turtle game,
Okay.
and I heard it wasn't as good as the Transformers game, and I don't never hear anyone talking about it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it was one of the only few Ninja Turtle games that I haven't played to this day.
Well, there's a new one coming out. We talked about this, like us
Yes,
personally, not through, not on a podcast, but you and I talked about it. There's a new
yeah, and
one that was just announced.
what was it called? Shredder comes
Was it
back or something.
Shredder's Revenge? I don't know.
Yeah,
What was it?
I
I
can't.
don't. It was something about Shredder. I know that.
Yeah, and the when I first saw it, I thought it was going to be a continuation of the cartoon series, and then
Yeah.
until I found or saw the gameplay, I'm like, oh, it's a video game. But it would have been so cool if they came back with a cartoon series.
Oh, that would have been
That
pretty awesome.
Yeah,
But the fact that they're doing another side-scrolling beat 'em up,
yes,
and
because we need
it's
more of that.
of course
Yeah,
no Ninja Turtles game should ever be anything but a side-scrolling beat 'em up at this point.
yeah,
Because they've all been good. Like
yeah,
the only like that original NES one, the only good parts of that game were the side-scrolling parts, and they were terrible, but it was only good part of that game. And
yeah,
from that point on, the only good Turtles games were the side-scrolling beat 'em ups.
yeah,
You know? So why
yeah. I
make
completely agree.
anything? Why make anything else?
Yeah, I think the only other I'm not sure if you ever played this game for the SNES or NES, because it came out for both, but it was Ninja Turtles Fighters or something, TMNT
Mm-mm.
Fighters. Yeah,
No, I never played
they
it.
had a fighting game for the Ninja
That's
Turtles.
awesome. Okay,
Yeah,
I'd be down with another one of those then.
it wasn't as great
Yeah,
as obviously Street Fighter or any of the other fighting games,
of
but the fact
course.
that you could uh, play that game type or game genre was super fun, and
Yeah.
they eventually brought something like that back to I believe it was Injustice 2, where it was downloadable characters where
Yeah.
you could play the Ninja Turtles, and that was amazing.
In Injustice 2?
Yeah,
Are you sure? I don't remember them being in there.
yeah, because they were DLC content.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, because I think Injustice 1 and 2 had DLC content.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the
They
first one
definitely.
had you could play as Hellboy and who was the other one? Freddy, I believe, and Jason.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Injustice 2, I think you can play as Predator and Alien, I think.
That was Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat that had them.
Oh, okay. It was one of those. But the Injustice 2 or Injustice and Mortal Kombat games usually had those
Yeah,
characters to
yeah.
be
I
able to
think
play.
the Freddy and Jason were in Mortal Kombat 10.
Oh, okay.
And then the other ones are in, I think, I want to say Mortal Kombat 11. But
Oh, okay.
Hellboy sounds like something that would be in Injustice.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know. Are you sure the turtles are in there? I'm gonna look into
They're
that.
in one of those. It's either Mortal Kombat or Injustice.
Okay, I'm gonna look into that because
Yeah.
now I'm all
Check out
crazy.
yeah, because the anim or their character designs kind of reminisce a little bit of
Oh
the
shit.
movies, the
Yeah,
live action movies. I was like, dude, that's super cool.
that's awesome. Speaking of
Yeah.
live action movies, they're on HBO Max if you don't have that already.
Wait, the original movies?
The original TMNT movies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was
I
going through
actually,
it the other day and I
yeah,
saw them and I was just like, add to list, like
yeah, for sure.
watching these soon.
Yeah, yeah. If you guys are ever having like a bad day or anything, just pop on the original TMNT movie.
Oh yeah.
uh,
Do you have HBO Max?
I do, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Oh man.
I have the Blu-ray copies, but so I
Oh
could watch
wow.
them whenever. But yeah, just having the ease of streaming it and
Yeah.
seeing in good quality
I
is
was
good.
I signed up for HBO Max the other day, and
Yeah,
because I kept hearing all this good stuff, and I was just like,
yeah.
I'll get to it. And
When they first came out, it was
it
okay, and
wasn't
then
that? Yeah, I think
yeah,
everybody just had it for Game of Thrones. That was really
yeah,
all.
that's exactly
Yeah,
why a lot of people had it.
yeah. And so I finally got convinced to sub to it, and I was
Yeah,
looking through it, and I just was like adding stuff like for like an
yeah,
hour
they
straight,
had some pretty good stuff,
and that
especially a lot of DC.
yeah. And then after that night when I was done,
Mhm.
I finally added everything, and I was just like, now I need to find something to watch. Now that I've
Yeah,
added like 5,000 things, I need to watch something. And I ended up, I had to work early in the morning the next day, but I
yeah,
was so like hyped, like hopped up on caffeine, couldn't sleep. I watched
yeah.
both Bill and Ted's movies,
Oh,
Bill and
nice.
Ted's movies, like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
back to back.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was. Well, I say both because I don't count the third one because it's not on there, and
Oh, okay.
I still haven't even seen it as much as I want to watch it. I haven't got to it yet.
I
But
think it's
so
still entertaining because I saw it and when it first came out, and it wasn't as good as the original, but it was still entertaining. It had that same, almost the same charm in that aspect.
yeah, so that's cool. It looks fun and it looks entertaining, to watch,
Yeah,
but I just I haven't got to it yet. Like I don't even know what streaming service it's on to watch. I
yeah.
remember
I have it on Vudu, but
okay.
I had to buy it. So
So I can just buy it on Vudu if I really want to watch it.
or rent it if honestly that movie could be a one and done type of movie depending on your take.
So it's not like well, I mean, I guess technically Bonus Journey is a one and done because I watched it
Yeah,
back when it came out. I believe I saw that in
same.
theaters.
Hmm.
I didn't watch it again until the other night. So I literally saw that movie back in the 90s when it came out.
Yeah,
And I didn't,
until
so we're talking, what, like 20 something years between the first and
yeah,
second time I watched that movie. But
yeah,
Excellent Adventure, on the other hand,
yeah,
I have watched numerous times,
yeah,
from being a kid, the first time I saw it, that first year alone,
yeah,
watching it repeatedly, and watching it obviously like throughout the years, but less and less each year, the older I got and the more movies I experienced and the more things I wanted to watch. And that's a whole other story, but you get
yeah.
the point. But yeah, like I've seen the first one countless times. Like I can probably recite a large portion of that movie, without even trying,
Yeah.
especially now that it's fresh in my head from the other day. But
Nice.
yeah, so
Yeah, it's such a great
HBO
movie.
Max is awesome. Yeah, it's definitely something that I recommend to anybody, especially like once I saw the first two TMNT movies on there, nobody likes the third really.
Yeah, no. Even
Yeah,
the second one, it's like 50-50 for
watch.
a lot of people.
Your words are poison.
That's exactly what I tell other people when they say that.
The second one's so
Actually,
good. It's
yeah.
my favorite. Even with Vanilla Ice coming out and doing
Oh
the
man,
ninja
it's
rap.
so catchy. Yeah. The
Yeah,
ninja rap.
that movie is so good. Like
Yeah.
even
It
if
was
you like omit that scene,
yeah.
the movie is just solid. Like it's so good. It's the better of the two, I think.
Dude, honestly, I still like I love that scene.
Oh
That
yeah,
vanilla
I do
ice.
too, of course. But I'm saying, but even if you were to like admit like the cheesiness of that scene,
Yeah,
like that movie's still really good.
it
You know,
is.
as
Yeah.
cheesy as that part is.
Yeah.
Hell, there's times where I'll just be sitting here like watching stuff on YouTube at night, and I'll just watch the
Yeah.
Ninja Rap video
Oh, nice.
because it's so bad.
Right.
You know,
And
I think
it's
actually I watched it a
okay.
couple months ago. Actually,
Oh, awesome. I watch that every single year.
nice. Wait, the movie or just
Yeah.
the Ninja Rap on YouTube?
No, both movies.
Oh no, I'm talking. I'd like just watched like the Ninja Rap part, like
Oh, the
because
ninja
there's
rap
a
part I just watched a few weeks ago too.
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've fully got sidetracked, hold on, let me check something. What are we? Okay, so my last one, because this is actually you've already done your five, right?
Yes.
Uh, completely off the wall. So we haven't mentioned anything related to this, and they've actually done two things that were based on comic books of sorts, comic books
Yeah.
slash graphic novels, I guess, over the years. And I haven't read anything from the series. Like
Mhm.
I knew it was a comic book series, but I had never read anything. I played this game. I loved it. It's amazing, and I recommend this to anybody.
Is it the Wolf Among Us?
Yes.
I
How did you know?
don't know.
Do you?
Because the fact that you said that you haven't read any of it yet, that's when I was like, okay, it can't be Walking Dead. It has to be Wolf
Okay.
Among Us.
Yo, I guess yeah, because I
Yeah.
said they made two, The
Yeah.
Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us. So
Nice.
it stems from a series called Fables. I do
Mhm.
not remember who wrote these. I can't remember his name, and I'm sorry if someday we're so big he listens to all of our podcasts or she. I think it was a he, but let's just say, for the sake, I don't know, and I'm sorry and I apologize. Same thing to the artist. I don't know who it is. I've never read any of the stuff. I've
Yeah,
looked into
neither
it.
have I.
It's on my list of stuff to read because at the time I got into this, it was during a downtime of my comic book experience where I wasn't reading graphic novels, I wasn't reading collecting, nothing. You know, like I was kind of out of it of the game at the time. I was really just playing video games. I wasn't, I was reading novels, like actual like books again at this point, and playing video games. And The Wolf Among Us came out, and I got it, and holy crap, like it's so good. Like it's so good. For anyone who's unfamiliar with it, it's like let me see if I can try to remember what they're called. I want to say they're called fables, not the story, but like they themselves are called fables.
Yeah.
And it's about the big bad wolf, and he's like kind of the head of them, the kind of like the leader sort of. And they use these excuse me, like this magic type stuff to make them appear human. And it covers all sorts of old like children's fables and puts like a really dark twist on it. And it has like Snow White, the big bad wolf, Humpty Dumpty. Who else? I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. There's so many. Like I feel like even like the 5 chapter game, like there's tons of them. But so there was the Fables um, series, which is if you go like trade paperbacks, I think there's like 16 or more. There's a ton of them. But then they wrote The Wolf Among Us that is based loosely off of that. There wasn't a Wolf Among Us trade or, set of issues. But then the game came out based off of that and it was its own new story. Then they wrote a trade slash comic book issues. I don't know if that existed. I just know it's a trade about that specifically. And I'm
Nice.
not sure if it's like a one for one story, even though you know those Telltale games can take different routes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a one for one, if it's an original story about the Wolf Among Us, or how it's told. I haven't read it yet, but it's on the list of things that I need to buy and want to read.
Yeah.
But so that game, it's so good. Like it's dark, like there's just murder and death and just betrayal and just everything that's just terrible, and it ties into these stories that like you read as kids that aren't supposed to be dark,
Yeah. I
or
think there
that
was
might
a. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, that like might have like pieces that are dark, but like things you don't realize as a child, that maybe adults might notice. And that's why
Yeah.
it's so easy for them to adapt into something like this. And
Yeah.
now looking at this stuff as an adult and seeing this, you're just like it just kind of blows your mind to see how they can take what seems like an innocent children's story and
Yeah.
just make it, like gloomy and dark and about murder and suicide and
Yeah.
yeah, it's ridiculous and
I
it's
think they had
such a good
a.
game.
I think they had a take or a TV series take on something similar to that, which was Once Upon a Time. But I
Yeah.
still haven't watched that TV
Yeah, I've
series.
never watched it. I know what it
Yeah.
is, but I've never watched it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Now that I make that connection, I don't know, maybe it's worth giving it a watch.
Yeah. Maybe
But
I'll check it out. It's still on my list of long list to binge.
oh
So
yeah, very, very
yeah.
long list of things. But The
Yeah.
Wolf Among Us is by far one of my favorite comic book slash like related, I guess, comic book
Yeah.
adjacent because it
Yeah.
came from like how do I word this? Like it wasn't like how Spider-Man was in nothing but comics before and
Right.
became its own
It was its own
its own
universe.
video game that isn't
Yeah.
related to an arc. It wasn't like that. It was like they wrote all these stories and all these stories that weren't connected. They pulled a single character out and wrote a whole video game based around him,
Yeah.
and then they wrote a comic book about that.
That's awesome.
So that's why, I kind of brought it up a little bit earlier. I didn't think it would really pertain to this as much because it did stem from Fables,
Yeah.
which was first, but oh, it's so good. Like just so dark and just horrible. Like just the stuff that happens in that game.
Yeah, I still have to play that. I think I ended up getting it when it was like a free game download for PS4, so I
Yeah,
have it somewhere in my library.
you need to play it. It's awesome.
Yeah,
It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours per episode,
yeah,
and it's 5 episodes. So you can finish it in like 10, 12 hours tops.
nice.
A lot of dialogue, a lot of reading,
Yeah,
some investigating, some, walking around, basic stuff like any of the Telltale games, but
yeah,
nothing that's like this major puzzle that's gonna like have you locked up for, an hour or two trying to figure out what's going on.
right, right.
It's pretty much an interactive novel slash comic book.
Yeah,
Anybody can jump in and have a good time with it. But it's
sweet.
so good, like just so interesting to see like said everybody come to life that way.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, so I think to wrap up that section, that's our top five comic book adaptation for video games. Did you want to go over the next section or like kind of talk over it?
Just briefly, I guess we did kind of want to just kind of chat a little, I guess, about potential comic books we'd like to see made into video games at this point.
Awesome.
So
So we'll go into this bonus section if, on the podcast. If you guys are made it this long to the towards the end of the podcast and you guys want to keep on listening, the next section that we're going over is just a couple, comic book either stories or heroes or adaptations going into video games. I'll let you go ahead first.
before we jump into that, would you actually like to also see the flip side of that, where a video game turned into a comic book?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that.
So instead of like jumping back and forth, maybe just kind
Yeah,
of talk about possibly both, because one thing that I
Yeah.
can think of that comes to mind, and it may exist. I don't think it does. I've never seen anything, but I'd love to
Yeah.
see Infamous become a comic book.
Infamous. Oh,
Uh,
I could see that game going into a comic book.
it's literally like the concept of a comic book just done as a video game and never put like, as pen to paper.
Right.
It may exist as a comic book. I've never seen
Mm.
it. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But specifically, I feel like Second Son would be a better one, the one that came out for PS4.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, don't get me wrong, Cole was awesome in Infamous and Infamous 2 on the PS3, but I felt like those were like solid video games and do have comic book potential.
Yeah.
But I felt like Second Son kind of offered a little bit more. I don't know how to really explain it. I think it kind of just had more of like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like Delson's character, I think, kind of led to more of what you'd like to see out of a comic book main character.
Yeah.
Whereas Cole was like super like serious at times and just kind of angry from what I remember. It's been a while since I've played him. But he just kind of seemed like angry and pissed off. And not that there
Yeah.
aren't comic book heroes like that, but I feel like I kind of got my fill of Cole in those two games, you
Yeah.
know. But I think Delson could be translated into a comic book character very well, and I'd like to see more of him. Maybe it's because I only got one game and I didn't get two full games of him and was just kind of like, well, I'm done.
Yeah.
I've had my fill of Delson. So so
Yeah, I
that's the
completely
first one
agree.
that I'd probably gonna throw out there that I'd like to see.
Sweet. I think for me, when it comes to video game adaptations to a comic book, it would have to be this one, and that's Comics Zone for the for the Sega Genesis. Even though the video game played very closely to a comic book series, he's literally like jumping through panels and fighting bad guys and whatnot. I think he's I never beat the game, but from what I remember, the you're I think you're going against the artist, and the artist would
Nice.
draw on like bad guys or the next villain that you're going to fight, and then you have to go through the story, and it's up to you whether you want to go back, up, or down a panel in
You know
order
what?
to progress the story.
I remember this game now that I'm watching the screen.
Yeah.
Totally remember this game, and I kind of remember it being bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a good game.
No, not
It's
really,
a
but the
really,
concept was
really cool concept. Yes,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
10 out of 10 concept, like 4 out of 10 execution.
Yeah.
Like they had it down, but it's like
Mhm.
they took one of the best concepts they can come up with, but put like the most generic team like or concept or I'm sorry, the development team behind it. They're just
Yeah.
like, just make something that does this, and you
Yeah.
know, and you get what I'm saying, right? Like they
Yeah.
kind of just threw I don't know, almost like the B team at it, and they were just like,
Yeah.
just make something like this so we can put something out.
Yeah.
But if they put like the AAA effort into it, it'd be a
It
game
would have
that
been
people
really
would be
good.
talking about to this day.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, we need that fifth installment of this, and now
Yeah.
we're just like, man, they should have done a better job on that first one.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah,
But yeah, I just chose this because of the concept, and kind of like if you get a an awesome creative team behind a comic book like this, where the writer and the artist is going against the characters in the comic book that they're writing. That's that's a comic book series that I've never read.
wait, in what you said? I'm sorry.
That's a comic book series I've never read,
Oh, okay.
like that concept
Yeah,
where the characters are either going against or teaming up with the creative team behind the actual comic book.
yeah.
Yeah.
That would definitely be a cool concept to see.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, obviously we saw it, but like a concept like fleshed out and kind of made into a better game.
Yeah.
One I would like to see, and again, I have no idea if this exists. I've never seen anything like this, but Castlevania.
Oh yeah, Castlevania
Uh,
would be really good.
there's so much lore and history behind the Belmonts
Yeah.
that you could literally just have like thousands of pages worth of just Castlevania, you know, um, like comics, like just hell, even if you just went the graphic novel route and just like screw the single issues, just give me some graphic novels of that. Just
Yeah,
give me like the 200 pages of just Castlevania like done like panel for panel. Because part of what's amazing about that game is like the art style,
yeah,
the aesthetics of it, and then the story is awesome. Like it's just this dude coming to just you know beat Dracula's ass. Like
yeah,
and he's just like, I'm the 18th guy in my bloodline to do this, and I'm gonna do it, and he does. And it's
yeah,
just like, then he dies, and 40 years later, 100 years later, Dracula comes back to flex, and
yeah,
another Belmont's just like, time to die, dude. you know, now I'm gonna kill you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's really cool to just see like how the bloodline continued, and just it's like every like so many generations a new Belmont comes forward, and
yeah,
he's the one who's going to kill, and actually it became she's the one who's going to kill Dracula, and it's awesome. Like they just these Belmonts are amazing.
yeah.
And then you would get into like the order of sorry if I pronounce this incorrectly, but I believe it's the Order of Ecclesia, which
Hmm.
was a DS game, and it's another like offshoot. And if I'm not mistaken, the concept is there were no known living Belmonts, but Dracula was still coming back. Because like I said, I
Yeah,
think it's like 100 years. I think I said 40 earlier, but I want to say it's like 100 years. So there's no known existing Belmont.
yeah,
If anybody's listening to this and knows more about this, feel free to comment and correct me. No problem with that. But the concept is they need to find a way to kill Dracula because the Belmonts are the only ones who have successfully done it,
yeah,
and they need to figure this out. So the Order of Ecclesia forms and finds a way to stop Dracula, and that's what that game's about. So the fact that it like it's continued this long history and this long story, that's comic books, like
yeah,
that's exactly how these have always been written. Like you
yeah,
can do so much with it,
yeah. I can
and
see that.
and then the fact that it can like shoot off into this whole other story, and then now you could like tell the story of like that order, and their bloodline, or
Hmm.
whatever it is, and like the offshoot that they are. There's so much history and so much story and so many characters and so many
Yeah,
good and interesting characters that can be told about this,
yeah,
that I just feel like Castlevania would be a prime example of like a comic book, like just so good.
yeah. They have so many good series that you could just expand upon it.
Yeah, and I wish I could say that there's no bad Castlevania games, but there's a couple bad ones out there. Main title Castlevania games. There's unfortunately a couple, but the bulk of them have been phenomenal.
Yeah,
I have my issues with a few of them, like the 64
yeah,
games. The first Lords of Shadow was kind of whack,
yeah,
but I love Castlevania too. People hate it. Simon's Quest.
yeah.
Huge fan of it, and I'd love to see these stories told, in
In comic book format.
comic book form, panel to panel.
Yeah,
I think it'd be great.
yeah. That'd
So
be
that
awesome. That's a
that's
really good choice.
thank you. That's another
I
one I'd throw out there.
think
This is,
for
mind you, uh, these other ones for anyone listening. None of this is scripted, but we do definitely come with some notes, some
yeah.
concepts. For me, these are just coming off the top of my head right now. I don't know about you, but I have none of this pre-planned.
No,
So
none of the this part anyway.
yeah, yeah. None the other stuff was pre-planned for me,
Yeah,
but this is all just stuff like off the top of my head that I'm thinking,
yeah. I
and I
think for
think it.
the oh, go ahead.
Oh, I would say I think it makes a little. What's a word I'm looking for? Like a little more. Not candid. What's the word I'm looking for? Like a little more real. Like not to say that it's not real before, but like we don't have time to think. We don't have time to plan this and
Yeah, you just gotta think on the
research and
fly. So
yeah. So
yeah,
I enjoy this kind of stuff.
my for me for a second choice, it would probably have to be it's a tie between Chrono Trigger and The Legend of Dragoon. Those two like fantasy stories are just so good, and they have such awesome characters that you could get invested to. I don't know if you guys have ever played either of these two games. Chrono Trigger was released on the SNES and ported through the DS systems, and Legend of Dragoon was only released on the PS1 and also ported on the PS3. So if you guys ever played those games, you know how deep and the depth of those characters that were on those games. Even just the animation for Chrono Trigger, they honestly they probably have a manga out for that series, but I would love to see a comic book format done for that game. Just because I don't know, the stories for those games were really epic, very well done. They had like a bunch of, you know, they got like a frog warrior, a robot, the main character, and then you got time travel like going into it.
Yeah, the cave
That's an
woman,
and the cave woman, yeah.
Ayla, I
Uh,
believe her name was.
yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, they have so many good characters in that series. And
Just
same
to
thing. Yeah, go
interject
ahead.
real quick.
Yeah.
Just gonna throw in. You said there was a manga or possibly a manga. The artist is Akira Toriyama, which
Yep.
is the
The
guy
one the
who the Dragon Ball,
Yep.
everybody knows Dragon Ball,
Dragon Ball Z, same
Dragon
artist.
Quest,
Hmm.
and we've already seen his art put to paper,
Yep.
and what it's capable of, and
Yeah.
how good it looks, and you know, like how amazing that guy is as an
Yeah.
artist, not just,
Hmm.
making these sprites and making it come to life, but
Yeah.
how he can make things look like they're coming to life on paper.
Yeah.
So to be able to see like his art and like, in like a honestly, I know this was video games to comic books,
Yeah.
but I'd settle for a manga of Dragon or of Chrono Trigger if it doesn't exist already.
Oh yeah.
Hell, I'd even take the exact same story that exists in the game, not even
Hmm.
a spin-off, not a continuation,
Yeah.
just
Just a straight port.
start to finish of the story. Yeah,
Yeah.
like just see that written in his art, possibly like, you know, because with those sprites back in the day,
Hmm.
you couldn't truly see the expressions, and then on the DS port, like,
Yeah.
seeing the expressions on this tiny screen, but being able to
Yeah.
see the detail and expressions and things happening,
Yeah.
on in a book would be so much better,
Yeah.
for
And the
Chrono
extra
Trigger.
dialogue that they could,
Oh, of
layer upon
course.
that would be
That
amazing.
that is a really good choice. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
That
Thanks.
is no problem. That is awesome to
Yeah.
think about.
I
Just
might try to look for that like
I know,
after
right?
we jump out.
5-minute break, time to see if it exists. No.
They do have
Uh,
it.
order on Amazon today.
Yeah.
No, but that is definitely something I'd like to see come to life on paper. Come to life? Is that really coming to life?
Yeah, totally.
Eh, no, but you know what I mean. Like just see brought to like pen and paper, and actually drawn. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so
So,
that's one of my picks for the second one.
so if I had to,
What was the other adaptation that we're doing from comic book to video game, right? Oh yeah, another one, or
well,
video game to comic.
video game to comic or comic to video game would be
Yeah.
both. Like
Okay.
just any variation of one to the other, just because like like there've been a lot come out. Like there've been like God of War, Cyberpunk,
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed, obviously, Horizon
Yeah.
Zero Dawn. There have been a lot, but there's still a ton of stuff that has not been adapted, and a lot of the stuff wouldn't work. Like an Ice Cream Man video game would be terrible.
What?
Yes, it would. Like Once in Future would probably be terrible. Middle West would be terrible. Like there's certain things that just wouldn't translate very well. You know
I don't know. I
how?
think it just depends. Kind of like the Scott Pilgrim game, or from comic to video game, was done really well as a side
Yeah.
scroller
Well,
beat 'em up.
and there's some stuff that is, but I think there's some
Yeah.
stuff that relies too heavy on story that it just wouldn't be
Mm,
fun. You know,
right.
like Hellboy would be a terrible video game. You know, like I don't think that would be fun. Like that game would require way too much reading to know what the hell you're doing, or it'd be a side-scrolling beat 'em up that wouldn't delve into the world of Hellboy enough that would make like Hellboy fans be like, "This is a great game."
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
you'd be
it
like,
depends on how
cool.
they do it. It's kind of like when they came out with the Spider-Man game, right, for PS4. They kind of introduced us to a Spider-Man that's already Spider-Man for a while.
Hmm.
So if it's a new, a new fan jumping into Spider-Man and like who the hell is this? Like, how did he get his powers or whatever? If you don't know the lore behind it, like it could be, like they might not think it's a good Spider-Man game just because they're not
But I feel like Spider-Man might be a bad example because in 2018, I think everybody knows how Spider-Man got his powers.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
I
a
mean, like
genie gave it to him.
it's been around for so long, but like you could
Wow.
do the same with what do you call it? You said Hellboy.
Yeah.
So if you come out with a Hellboy game and put it out for another 10 years, eventually people are gonna know who Hellboy is, and like they'll develop a game type that people will like for Hellboy. But it just
Hmm,
honestly, I think
I
it
don't know.
depends.
I
Yeah.
feel like there's just some series that like wouldn't adapt too well,
Mhm.
and like Power Rangers would be a great side-scrolling beat 'em up. Like that's
They
one of
had
those
that.
ones that like it would be
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
And granted, that's not that didn't start as a comic book, but it became a very good comic book as we've discussed.
Yeah.
Like Animal Crossing would be a terrible comic book series. Like
I could see
like
that.
there's just some things that just wouldn't translate, but
Yeah.
something that would be good, like oh man, let me think back to some games I've played recently. Huh. Played a lot of games, so
I still have I still haven't read it, but Mass Effect.
well, that is an existing one.
It is, but I still haven't read it, so I don't know
Yeah.
if it's good or not.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you meant
Yeah.
like one that would be good would be like Shadow Hearts.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if did you ever play Shadow Hearts? I know you
I
own
did,
them,
yeah.
but okay,
I played it, I never beat it.
okay.
It's so hard.
Like that Judgment Ring, like that
Yeah.
timing. I
Yep.
remember the better your weapons get, the smaller the little spot you have to click on.
Yeah, your
I do remember
window
like
of
the
up.
ring
Yeah.
spins once and you have to click it
Yeah.
twice on every red spot.
Yeah.
And the better your weapons get, like the less room you have. It got to a point where like I was just nailing them left and right because
Yeah.
for like 40 hours, you get good at anything.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good one. Like there's a lot of lore and a lot of history, and I feel like throughout 3 games, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's not even talk about From the New World because that's like that almost felt like a side story to some degree because it
Yeah.
didn't have Yuri as the main character. Second game I've mentioned today with the character named Yuri, because I mentioned Spider-Man with Yuri, but the main character's name is Yuri in Shadow Hearts, and I believe it's in him in Shadow Hearts Covenant. Um, like there's just a lot of history and a lot of like story and stuff that is never really explained in those that they could really expand upon,
Yeah.
and I think that would be possibly one of those things that could be adapted into, I guess, maybe a manga or a comic book where it explains like some side story, not seeing that game put to paper, but
Yeah.
seeing like the continuation of, or what connects, Shadow Hearts to Shadow Hearts Covenant, stuff like that, or how like the two stories like become intertwined,
Yeah.
or like prequels or sequels and side stories to like certain characters and stuff like that. That would be another good game.
Nice.
I feel like can be adapted to a comic book pretty well.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool. I would play it or
Read
read
it.
it. Yeah.
You'd play
Um,
it.
yeah.
I'll
um, I
allow it.
think I think another not another video game to comic book, but comic book to video game I would love to see is Green Lantern's Blackest Night event. Um, I still haven't read it because I'm still looking for the Brightest Day omnibus to have the complete set written by Jeff Johns. Um, yeah, I would love to see that series put onto a video game that's very similar to the Spider-Man game that Marvel put out, since it was very story driven. And I don't know if you're familiar with any of the Green Lanterns, but
Mm.
I don't want to say they're like kind of like the Power Rangers, but like they have this group where they have even I don't know too much about it yet, but they do have this group of each ring having a different color and having a different power. Kind of like I forget I forget what the Green Lantern ring stands for, but like I think the yellow one is fear, and they have like the red lanterns, which is rage, I believe. So they have one for each color, and eventually they have this Blackest Night event where it's kind of like uh, I guess for you to comprehend, it's kind of like null. Like there's a
Yeah,
is that type of event where it encumbers and like threatens all the other lanterns. So now they have to join forces to fight this group.
that
So
actually sounds pretty cool.
yeah,
Huh.
I yeah, if you're looking for a good DC story, like you got to check that out.
If you're looking for a good
It's
DC
really
story,
long. So
metal. Just
metal.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
I mean, it's good.
I'm just not a
Even though
Green Lantern fan.
I
I
think
don't dislike Green Lantern. I don't really
yeah, yeah,
dislike much of this stuff. I'm just,
yeah,
there's just things I've read and there's things I have like kind of touched on but didn't delve
yeah,
into, you know.
yeah. I know. I think it's because it was from a lot of recommendations. Everything that like Jeff Johns has written is like gold. Kind of like
Yeah.
how you feel about Donny Cates.
Oh, okay. So
It's
much.
like
Well,
DC's
everything I've
Donny
read
Cates.
from Jeff Johns is amazing. So,
Mm,
I mean, I guess knowing that he wrote that Green Lantern, it's worth checking out.
yeah, that's why I'm very curious to like if a writer could make me like a character that I'm not like really interested in, I'm very intrigued and I will buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the last thing I'm gonna touch on because we're hitting 2 hours. So feel free if you have another one to bring this up after. I just want the last one. I mentioned before I'm not a big Daredevil fan.
yeah,
I don't hate any of these characters. I don't hate Daredevil by any means,
yeah,
but I'd like to see like a proper, like up to date Daredevil game. I feel like with what they did with Spider-Man and being able to just see that open world and like free motion, imagine what they can do with Daredevil
oh, that'd be
with
amazing.
like just combat alone and like just his
Yeah,
movement, and then having him like team up with Elektra.
yeah,
Like there'd be so much they could do with a Daredevil game. And apparently there was one, I guess, from the last few years that was supposed to have come out.
yeah,
I don't know who made it, but I just know that there was like supposedly like leaked footage. All rumors, all could be fakes. I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me if at some point, especially during the hype of the show on Netflix,
yeah,
that maybe something was possibly in the works. But definitely like a proper Daredevil game that just highlights only Daredevil, not like being thrown in as like one of like six in a cast,
yeah,
like like different like X-Men and whatever, like whatever teams you want to throw in there together, and Daredevil ends up on the roster. Like no, nothing like that. Just a Daredevil game start to finish. I think
yeah.
that
That'd be
would
really
be kind
good.
of cool. I think his skill set alone could really prove to just make for a lot of really good combat in the game. But it would
Yeah,
definitely have to be like an action game.
yeah, he's a
No
very
no RPGs.
he's a very grounded character, and I could see him, doing an action type of game with mixed with stealth, since
Yeah.
he has that ability to see even though he's blind.
I guess a good game I can compare it to, and I actually meant to bring this up a little bit ago, before we brought this segment up. An honorable mention, I feel like you might agree with me. One thing we completely neglected,
I hope you say, because I was gonna bring it up the next
and
the next segment.
I
So
kind of feel bad that neither of us mentioned it,
yeah,
is the Batman Arkham trilogy
yep, that's the
slash
one.
quadrilogy. The
Yeah, because
fact that neither of us brought it up makes me
yeah,
feel horrible. Those games are so good.
yeah, I was gonna bring it up.
They just aren't my
Yeah,
favorite. Like I don't have this huge nostalgia factor on them. Like,
mhm,
you know, like Arkham Asylum was great for what or yeah, Arkham Asylum was great for what it was, but when you compare it to Arkham City, it was bad because you were very restricted and confined.
yeah,
And I get it. It's Arkham Asylum, you're restricted to the asylum. But City showed what that game can do. But then
yeah,
you play Arkham Knight, and then they show what you could really do when they just let you free in the city. and
Yeah.
then give you the Batmobile.
Mm.
And Origins, I mean, obviously, that's a whole other conversation on why
Yeah.
that game is really good and really bad at the same time because another
Yeah.
team worked on it. But like those games are great. They're not my favorite. Like I'm just not a huge DC fan, I guess. I like some stuff a lot with DC,
Yeah.
like the Joker stuff that we talked about,
Yeah.
some of the Batman stuff. But I'm just not like not a DC fanboy. I'm a Marvel fanboy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But
Same.
those games, they were really good. But the
They
fact that
were.
Batman
Yeah.
couldn't jump kind of
Yeah.
like bothered me. You know,
Yeah.
and I feel like as much as I'm not a fan of Superman, as bad as every Superman game has been,
The
if
N64 Superman.
yes, if if they do like a Superman game kind of in the vein of that, that might be the way they could really bring Superman back into the video game world and make people
Yeah.
appreciate a Superman video game. Because they were that good. Like they really were.
Yeah.
Especially when like you're in Arkham Knight specifically. One thing, and I brought this up at work the other day. One thing that kind of killed the game for me is they utilized the Batmobile a little too much because all you do is just take off in it as fast as you can, eject, and then you just glide over everything to the next objective.
Oh, okay.
And but taking down like the enemies and using what is it
The
like
grappling
the
hooks.
detective mode, well
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
like that, the detective mode,
Yeah.
going underneath the building and popping up and taking down the guys, like all that was really fun and being able to do. And that's why I feel like even though it didn't make our top five, either of our top five, it's
Yeah.
definitely an honorable mention. That
I
game
agree.
cannot be mentioned, or you cannot have a top five list without at least giving that game some credit, or
Yeah,
those
definitely.
games some credit.
Yep.
you know I feel bad, like I really do genuinely feel bad for
Yeah.
not mentioning those
Because I picked
games.
nothing but Marvel games.
Exactly, I
And I
picked
really wanted
Marvel
to add
and
DC. It was either going to be, the that game that was going to be mentioned or Turtles in Time. But
yeah.
Turtles in Time just has such a profound nostalgia factor for me that
See,
I couldn't have it on the list.
and I thought about putting Arkham Knight on the list because that was my
Mhm.
favorite of the three, or
Yeah,
the
same.
four. But I ended up going with Wolf Among Us because I felt like the emotional impact of that game was a lot
Yeah,
stronger. And I love a lot of stuff that like plays on your emotions.
yeah,
And that game really did. Whereas like Arkham Knight was just a really fun action game. Like it was just badass. Like, it was just beating the hell out of people. It had like Red Hood in it.
yeah.
Um oh, Deathstroke in it, I believe. Like there's a lot of cool characters, like the different
Mhm.
bat suits you get to switch to.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Especially if you
They
got
had they had like
the
a challenge mode too.
yeah. And if you got the DLC, I believe you got a bunch of different outfits for that.
Yeah,
And I think they were out, or I think the outfits, I'm sorry, were for the challenge modes.
yeah.
And I think that was the case for all of them. But like, there's just so much stuff in that game, and like, just
Yeah. A lot of
they,
replayability too.
yeah, like they put a lot of effort into making that game huge, and just they put like everything they can, without like overloading it through just like this game doesn't know what it's trying to be, you
Yeah,
know. And then like the worst part of the game, I guess, were like those tank battle type things where you have to like fight those tank type things in the way, and
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
yeah, yeah.
And you're in the Batmobile, like that was like probably the worst part of the game. But if
Mhm.
you can look past those like two battles, oh, and Jason Todd was in the game, so that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Right, it was
I,
Jason Todd, right? Yeah, yeah. It's
I
been a
think
it's been a long time since I played it too.
yeah, same. This isn't too much of a like an honorable mention per se, but I think the next really good game or comic book video game that's going to be coming out is Gotham Knights. I can't wait for that game.
That if I'm not mistaken, that game was delayed a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just recently announced as it being delayed, so that kind of
Yeah.
sucks. But
Yeah,
that's
but
the one that's the continuation of it, right? With where Batman's dead,
yeah.
and it's everybody else that you
Yeah,
get to play as.
and that's not a spoiler for you guys because if you look at the
They're
trailer, that's like the
they're
setup.
advertising the game as that way.
Yeah,
They're
that's a setup for
advertising,
the
yeah.
that's a setup for the game where the Bat family is all are all created already, and they get to this point where Bruce Wayne leaves a note or like a video message saying that if you got this, like you've then that I'm dead, and it's
Yeah.
up to you guys now to pretty much defend Gotham and everywhere else. And then I think the video message like gets decrypted or like blows up or something.
Yeah.
And then you see the Bat family start teaming up and getting ready for the whatever villain that they're gonna fight. So
Yeah, definitely an awesome series, and I'm looking forward to this new one coming out.
yeah,
So yeah, so I think that's it. I think that wraps up this episode. I
awesome.
think,
So I want to say thank you guys for giving us support, always checking us out on whether it be YouTube and through our podcasts or through our Instagram page. Which, if you're interested in checking it out, or if you don't follow us already, it's at comiXalliance, and that's spelled COMIX ALLIANCE, where we post our weekly polls and comic book reviews and other geeky, nerdy stuff that we post throughout the weeks. We try to put daily posts as often as we can, so feel free to check us out on there. We'll eventually have our podcast on Spotify one of these days, so just stay
hopefully soon.
tuned. Yeah. So just stay tuned. If you guys like this topic and you guys like comic book adaptations to video games, feel free to put down what you like down in the comments, or what comic book adaptations you would like to see become a video game. So feel free to put those comments down below, and we'll see you guys in the next podcast. Anything you want to say, Joe?
Nope, just want to say thank you, and for everyone who listens, we really appreciate you. And if you do have questions or comments, leave them, and we'll respond to them, and we'll address them in our next episode, next issue. I'm sorry, and that's it.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.